call to order a meeting of the Watchung Borough School District Board of Education. It's a regular meeting. It's January 23rd, 2025. Can we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Publics Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Laws of 1975, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being live streamed on the district website, where a recording of the meeting will also be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents, guardians whose children may be included in the image. So our first item of business is to administer the oath of office to our newly elected member, Mr. Adam Kraft.
Repeat after me. I, Adam Kraft,
I, Adam Kraft,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same and,
to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I, Adam Kraft,
I, Adam Kraft,
do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications
do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
that I am not disqualified as a voter
that I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
pursuant to RS 19-4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense
or disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense
listed in NJSA 18A-12-1,
listed in NJSA 18A-12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
So help me God. Congratulations. And I'll get you this.
He also has to sign the code of ethics.
Code of Ethics, it's right there.
No, that's the oath.
No, there's another one.
Oh, there's a code of ethics.
Welcome to the board, Mr. Kraft. All right, can we do a roll call, please, Ms. Bishop Johnson?
There you go. Mrs. Amadeo?
Here.
Okay, here we go. Mr. Frazier is absent. Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mrs. Jewett?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Maddox?
Here.
Mrs. Santos is absent. Mr. Kraft?
Here.
And Mrs. Agliaro.
Here.
And all are present. 7.
Great. We'll move on to presentations. We're going to have a presentation by Mrs. Gwen Thornton from the New Jersey School Boards Association on our Code of Ethics.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's nice to be back. This is part of your annual responsibility is to have ethics training. It's something that we do yearly, and I know you're, there we go. And you may want to turn, just if you want to watch, it's a little easier to see if you turn. The backs are not to the screen. So we revised this program every year and update it. So while it does cover a lot of material that a lot of you are familiar with, for those of you who are new, it may be new, altogether new, but if you've seen it before, it is much the same, but with some updating and changes. So this presentation is for informational purposes only. It is not designed to provide you with legal advice. Your board attorney is the one responsible for providing your board with legal advice. So the School Ethics Act, and here's NJ 18A again, that's where all educational law resides, is in 18A, from 21-12-21, that goes back to 1991, was designed to ensure that the public would have confidence and respect for the operations of boards of education. You are the largest group of unpaid public officials who at one point voluntarily ascribed to the Code of Ethics. Now it's enshrined in law and you're required to abide by it, but it's something that I think you can be very proud of, that this is a code of ethics around behavior that you all support. So again, board members and administrators must avoid conduct that is a violation of the public trust or which creates a justifiable impression among the public that their trust is being violated. The School Ethics Act is designed to give you some specific standards by which you must operate and provides for a disciplinary mechanism to ensure uniform maintenance of those standards across the state. And I would point out that it is the minimum standard of expected behavior. Okay. It refers to the Code of Ethics, to mandatory training, to acts that are prohibited, as well as your disclosure statements. We're going to go over the Code of Ethics and mandatory training and all of those pieces. I would point out, for those of you who are new, you have 30 days within which to complete your financial disclosure statements. For the rest of you, you have until April the 30th to complete those. Who enforces the act? What is that mechanism that you must follow? And who do you look to? The SEC, the School Ethics Commission, is composed of 9 members. They're appointed by the governor. It's a gubernatorial appointment. 2 school board members, 2 administrators, and 5 non-school officials. Right now, the 2 board seats are currently vacant, and one of the school administrator seats is currently vacant. The governors sometimes are remiss in appointing folks, but we are optimistic that they will have full contingent shortly. So those school disclosure, the financial disclosure statements, again, if you're just sworn in or started work as an administrator, you have 30 days. All of the rest of you as school officials have until April the 30th. It can be done online. Your business administrator will forward to you an email from the DOE. You can fill it all out online. I go back to the old days when it had to be done in duplicate and hand-signed and given back to your business administrator. Now it is really pretty easy. A little hint for those of you who are new, once you do it once, print a copy so that next year you have all of those addresses and information from the preceding year. It makes filling it out on an annual basis that much quicker for all of you. I do it we as members of School Boards Association, the professional staff, we also have to file the financial disclosure statements and live by the Code of Ethics. Mandatory training. In your first 90 days, if you're a brand new board member, you must attend Governance 1, which is new board member orientation. There are certain statutorily required components to that. It includes New Jersey CUSAC, which is New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, HIB, which is Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying, CSA Evaluation, Open Public Meetings Act, and the Code of Ethics. All of those are, in fact, covered at new board member orientation. By way of interest, tomorrow night is the first night of the weekend orientation programs. It's being completely revised, and it should be very much improved, and we're really looking forward to that change. In Gov 2, which is in the second year of your first term, you're required to take a year of training. It's on finance and policy. And in year 3, You must take it again, and it's around student achievement and labor relations, negotiations essentially. In every first year of any term subsequent to your first, you're required to take Gov 4. So Adam, if you completed the entire sequence, which I believe that you have, and you haven't been off 3 full years, then you can just go to Gov 4. You don't have to repeat Gov 1. But if there's a break in service that's longer than 3 years, you have to go back to the beginning. That's from the School Ethics Commission, not from New Jersey school boards. I'd like to point that out. We're not making it. It used to be 10 years, and they shortened it to 3 years break in service. Okay? The training is available in person, live virtual, as well as a self-paced online course. So if you aren't able to attend an in-person course, which I would certainly recommend that you do, especially as new board members, you can do it online at your own pace in your jammies and sweatpants at home at your leisure, making life infinitely easier for everybody. Okay? The Ethics Commission issues 2 different kinds of decisions. They provide advisory opinions as well as adjudicating cases. An advisory opinion is exactly that. It's if you think you might have a conflict or you think there might be something that you ought not to participate in as a member of the Board of Education, you can request an advisory opinion from the School Ethics Commission ahead of that conduct or that vote coming forward. And they will get back to you with an opinion and let you know whether you can participate or not. Sometimes the Ethics Commission will make an advisory opinion public if they believe that it is of such overarching importance to all members of boards of education to be aware of it, so that if you go to their website, you can read all of the advisory opinions. So an advisory opinion is really just where they opine on whether the proposed activity or conduct would likely be a violation of the Code of Ethics. And again, it's this, the School Ethics Commission, the state administrative agency responsible for these things, if they're determining that the conduct, which is subject of an advisory opinion, would constitute it, and you have engaged in such conduct after having sought an advisory opinion, it's more likely that you're going to face a more significant penalty. So, my little policeman is there. So, I had a board member say to me, well, it's just an opinion. I don't have to abide by it. Well, if a policeman tells you to stop your car and you keep driving, what happens? It's the same notion, right? You know that you have a problem, then you don't do it, right? Same kind of thing, okay? There are advisory opinions that are released. Here are some of the ones from 2024. Again, asking questions so that board members can get clear answers ahead of time. Just here's one where an adult child works in the district as the musical director, and as a substitute, could he or she participate in matters related to the superintendent? Because someone who is, if you have a family member employed within your school district here in Watchung, you would be conflicted out of evaluating the superintendent, setting terms and conditions of employment, because it's a conflict, because you have a family member whose employment is dependent upon the superintendent's recommendation for reemployment. So it would be a conflict for you to participate. So these are always interesting to read, and they really do help to guide you as you're thinking about whether you should participate in a particular area or not. This PowerPoint obviously is available on your website, so you can review it. I'm not going to read through every one of these cases. We would be here for a very long period of time if I did, although I could speak to all of them. Okay. Here are more that go on. What happens with an ethics complaint? Any member of the public, any member of a board, any citizen from anywhere, doesn't even have to be a resident of Watchung, could file an ethics complaint against a Board of Education member. You don't have to reside in a community. You can go online, find the ethics complaint form. You have 180 days from the time you become aware of the behavior or the incident that you think is an ethics violation to file. And then you have to provide information around what section of the act you believe has been violated and provide evidence to demonstrate that that particular section of the act has been violated, okay? So just keeping that in mind, it's really important to know that it can be filed by anyone, okay? What are the penalties? Let's say someone files an ethics charge against a board member, they are found to have violated the code. What are the penalties? A person can be reprimanded, which is the lowest, least significant form of penalty, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You get a letter from the commissioner that says you have done something wrong, but it does not result in a formal resolution. You can be censured, which is a more formal methodology. The board must read the resolution in public. It must be posted for 30 days within your district, so that's much more formal. You can be suspended from your Board of Education for engaging in any activity or matter for a designated period of time, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That has happened, happens recently. They also have the authority to terminate your membership on a Board of Education. They can remove you permanently from your Board of Education, okay? Or employment if you were an administrator. Okay? And here are the code. You're required to uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations. You just heard Adam read that as he was sworn in from the State Board of Ed, court orders pertaining to the districts, and desired changes shall only be brought about through legal and ethical procedures. Okay? You will agree to make your decisions in terms of the educational welfare of all children and will seek to develop and maintain the public schools so that you're meeting the needs of all children regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. And so one of the things that's most important is to remember that you always represent every child in the borough of Watchung. Not just the third graders, if you have a third grader, not just the sixth graders, not the lacrosse team, not the madrigal singers, not any one group, but all students all the time, okay? You're required to confine your board making, your actions to policy making, planning, and appraisal, and you will work with your colleagues to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them, whether it's your faculty, whether it's your community members, parents, and that input comes in different ways depending upon what it is you are doing at any given point in time. Okay? You will carry out your responsibilities not to administer the schools, excuse me, but together with your colleagues to see that they are well run. This speaks to micromanagement. You have educational leaders who are employed to run the day-to-day operations of the school district. That is not the role of the Board of Education. You don't want to get up at 4 o'clock and decide whether there's a snow day next week, right? That's not your job. That's your superintendent's job or your principal's responsibility or a teacher's responsibility in the classrooms. So you are not there to tell the teachers how to teach. You are not there to run the school district on a day-to-day basis. And you stick to policy, planning, and oversight. You have to recognize that your authority rests with the full Board of Education and make no personal promises nor take any private action that could compromise the board. You must refuse to surrender your judgment to special interest groups or partisan political groups or to use the schools for personal gain or the gains of your friends, which means your neighbors, other parents. You have to make sure that you make decisions in the best interest of all students. When you think about it and you reflect on it, your community members and your parents have their voice heard at the ballot box. They can come to a Board of Education meeting and be heard. Your teaching staff has a process because they have a negotiated agreement. They have a grievance process. They can have their voices heard. The only group that doesn't have a structured way to be heard are the kids. So you have to be the voice for the children. You have to speak and act on behalf of the students. Okay. You will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after considering the recommendations of your Chief Administrative Officer. You have to support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. Sometimes this is difficult, not so much perhaps with teaching staff. Oftentimes this happens with coaches that who are employed in a school district as teachers. And you may be a parent who's really unhappy with the coaching style of a particular individual, but you can no longer stand on the sideline and complain about the coach to other parents, because you're required by law to protect personnel in the proper performance of their duties. That doesn't mean you can't have a concern or want an issue addressed, but you would have to follow the chain of command to talk first to the coach and then to the principal and then work your way up to the superintendent. But that doesn't include coffee clatching with parents on the field about why your child should have had more playing time than somebody else's child. You're required to refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer, and you will act on the complaints at a public meeting only after the failure of an administrative solution. So again, if you hear something, see something, say something, you really can and should communicate with your administration if you are hearing about a complaint. But you cannot solve that complaint. You have to allow your administration the opportunity to solve whatever issue is involved. And sometimes don't mistake someone coming to the podium and saying, I didn't get a solution to my problem. It may not be the answer that a person wanted, but that doesn't mean that there was not work done on solving a problem. Okay. So here are some new cases. A lot of these we're finding have to do with social media and elections, not surprising. But again, I think the one below, C2422, is most instructive. A board member who had a child involved in an HIB complaint that they believe was invalid and decided that they would go and speak with the board's attorney, talk to the board in closed session regarding their child. And in that particular instance, if your child's involved, not only should you not be talking to the board attorney, you should be recusing yourself from executive session in that regard. And so again, the person was reprimanded, okay? Here's again, a teacher was to be discussed in executive session. A board member texted the teacher to notify them that they could accuse the board president or the BA or the chief school administrator for malfeasance if they did not receive a rice notice prior to the executive session. The board member made a personal promise that he could take action if the teacher had not received a rice notice. By sending such a message, the board member acted beyond the scope of their duty, and the conduct had the potential to compromise the board. They were reprimanded. That one's not fully adjudicated yet, okay? This one actually recommended suspension of 60 days. A board member who had been on the board for 15 years usurped the authority of the superintendent for making disciplinary recommendations. They went to an employee's home, picked up a letter, presented it on behalf of the employee, directed the BA not to give a copy of the letter to the superintendent. And then instead of recusing herself, the board member advocated on behalf of the employee and questioned the superintendents. That one's a particularly egregious one. And so they are recommending a 60-day suspension for that. So they will take action if something is significant and egregious, okay? Again, I'm going to let you read the rest of these. This one has to do with endorsing school board candidates while using their school identification badge. And again, insisting that having new members would change the new majority, which had made a claim. There was no evidence of a disclaimer, and so as a result of all of that, they were found to have violated the code. So one of the things that's sometimes confusing to Board of Education members, and this is an important distinction, sometimes you may be faced with a motion that comes before the board or a topic that comes before the board, and for some particular reason, you may not want to vote on it. So you may want to abstain from voting, which is neither a negative or a positive. It's just an abstention. You're not voting. However, sometimes there are things that may come before the board that requires you to formally disqualify and remove yourself from participating not only in voting, but also in the discussion. And that's an important and significant piece. If you need to recuse yourself, that means recusing yourself from the discussion and the vote. Abstaining is not voting, right? Which is less significant because you want to make sure that when you need to recuse, you're recusing as opposed to abstaining. And that's a really important piece. If you have a conflict of interest and you have either family involved or close friends involved, and there's an issue where the public perception could be that you were acting for the benefit of your friends or your family as opposed to acting for the benefit of the students, you could find yourself in a difficult position. So again, just be very thoughtful about that. Okay? Prohibited acts. You must recuse yourself if there is a benefit to you, the school official, or your immediate family, if it's about a business interest or professional activity in conflict. Using your position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment. And this extends to others beyond the definition of an immediate family member. Any kind of service or employment that might prejudice your independent judgment. A gift or favor if you were to accept it, if it was offered with the intent to influence how you were going to vote, and any kind of financial gain. So, you know, the dividing line here is, am I deriving a benefit that is greater than a benefit that would accrue to any other member of the public? So that is how you can always measure whether it's something you need to think about recusing yourself from. Again, you shall not represent any person or party other than board members in a matter before the board. I've seen indications sometimes where board members want to be helpful, especially perhaps with a special education hearing, perhaps, or meeting with a 504 officer and wanting to help a neighbor or a friend or a family member and going with them to do that. You can't do that as a Board of Education member. Okay? Again, it's not a conflict if anything that is accruing is greater than anybody else's gains. Okay? So, again, the definition of a benefit, a direct or indirect advantage, profit, privilege, or gain, whether it's personal, financial, or otherwise. So it's not just money. It's not dollars and cents. Okay? The determinative factor is the perception of the public, not necessarily the school official's belief that they are able to be objective. Because most folks, if you ask them and you say, can you be objective? We all would like to believe we can always be objective. Sometimes that's not possible, but it's beyond what we think as individuals. It includes the public's perception. And to give you an idea of how significantly they look at that, this was a district in Middlesex County. This took place just not a long time ago. The acting superintendent's son was one of 160 people on the employment list as a substitute. Okay? Clearly, the superintendent should have read the entire list, but didn't, and accidentally did not recuse herself. And so, again, it was a violation. And it was inadvertent. She freely acknowledged and admitted the mistake, but she hadn't read the whole list, but it was 160, which is probably about 10 pages worth of substitutes. So again, you just sometimes you have to be very thoughtful and careful about what you're voting on. So, not recusing herself constituted using her position to secure employment for her son, even though it had nothing really to do with her. It was done through the employment office. You have to have 60 credits. You can substitute in New Jersey. These days, in the era of teacher shortages, especially in the winter, substitutes are hard to find. And so just be mindful that that's an important piece, okay? A member of the president of the Parent-Teacher Association, it was spiritware and selling it. Again, you can read through all of these cases. You have to be very careful because you, as a board member, you would not want someone to feel compelled to purchase spiritware from you because you're a Board of Education member, thinking that somehow that's going to help. So again, you just have to be very thoughtful of it and think carefully about it. A board member voted on 2 resolutions to name a school building in honor of her supervisor, whom she had a political and professional relationship for over 20 years. So again, it was seen as her participation in voting on this would further her employment with the person who was being honored by naming them the school after this politician, who was a pretty powerful politician in the state of New Jersey. But the board member who voted for it lived to regret it and was censured for it. Okay? Relationship definitions. When we talk about a conflict, any member who of your immediate family member is always going to generate a conflict, whether it's a spouse, civil union, domestic partner, or a dependent child residing in the same household. That's the definition. Here's the definition of a relative. You can read that entire list. They have expanded it. It means probably almost everyone you've related to, and even second cousins you don't know you have. I'm exaggerating and kidding, but it is a very expansive list. Again, although relative does not appear in the prohibited acts or the code of ethics, a relative can create a conflict. Anyone not listed may be considered another if a conflict exists. They finally issued a chart that outlines who is a relative, and in the packet of information I gave you, I included that chart so you could see it. When it came out, I did this ethics presentation at that time, a couple years ago, in a district. The BA literally stood up and applauded it because they had waited so long for the Ethics Commission to say exactly who is a relative. So I included it for you, a copy of it, because it really is helpful for you to understand and know and be able to say, does my husband's brother-in-law, is that a relative? You'll be able to figure that out now very easily, okay? Again, the superintendent cannot recommend, nor may you hire the relative of a board member or a relative of your superintendent. You can't do that. An administrator cannot exercise direct or indirect authority over one of their relatives. So we actually have cases where someone is employed in the district, superintendent changes, superintendent now is related to someone who already worked in the district, who they may have been responsible for supervising. They have to create an alternate administrative arrangement for that, okay? A board member may not take place in employment matters or supervisors in the chain of command between a relative and the chief school administrator. That doesn't apply to you because I don't think any of you have relatives working in Watchung. But in many districts, that's absolutely a problem. A board member cannot take part in the search, discussion, voting to hire a new chief of school administrator, or engage in post-hire evaluations and contract discussions if you have a family member in the district. And that includes a substitute or a part-time summer worker. A lot of the high school districts employ kids, summer workers to work on the fields or whatever, help in the district. So that would conflict you out of the process for evaluation, okay? For collective bargaining, for negotiations, and this chart is in there, again, if you have an immediate family member or a relative who works in the district, you're just out altogether, okay? If you yourself or an immediate family member does not teach in this district but is in a similar or the same statewide association, NJEA, AFT, American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO, again, you can't participate in negotiations, but you can vote to ratify the contract, absent any other conflict, okay? So again, you can follow this, but it is something that is important. In terms of campaigns and collective bargaining, if you were endorsed by the Teachers Association, you may be conflicted if negotiations begin within a year of your election. But it's not an automatic exclusion. It used to be, so they changed it, that if you had been endorsed by the Teachers Association, you had to sit out a full year of your term, your first year of your term, and could not participate. Now they have said it's not an automatic exclusion unless a financial contribution is given with the intent to influence. Well, who's going to admit that they gave a financial contribution? Anyway, I didn't write that. Okay. Impact on committee assignments if you have a relative that works in district. This, again, is a relatively new phenomenon. They've now said that if you have a family member working in the district, depending upon what that relationship is, that you can be excluded from committees. So here's an example where the board president is excluded from personnel, negotiations, curriculum and instruction, and finance committees. There's essentially no committee left.
Bless you.
Okay? A board member works in the tech department, can't be involved in all matters or in committees that remotely touch upon or directly related to the spouse's employment, including without limitation personnel, negotiations, and/or finance committee. So they have expanded those exclusions. That's a relatively recent in the last year and a half. Advice of counsel defense for penalties. One of the more recent phenomenons is that sometimes Board of Education members will go before the Ethics Commission when they've been accused of violating a part of the Code of Ethics and say, it was on the advice of counsel. Our board attorney said I could do this. Okay. Well, again, there are certain limitations around that defense, and you have to make sure that you meet these criteria. To use an advice of counsel defense, you must have sought the counsel's advice prior to the action, not after the fact. That seems pretty logical. The individual who offered the advice or approval relied upon possessed authority or responsibility. You can't say my third cousin who's an attorney told me it was okay. It has to be your board attorney. All pertinent facts and circumstances were fully disclosed by you to the counsel, and they will check with the counsel, by the way. And the individual complied with the advice received. All four factors have to be present in order to utilize that defense. And again, it's very fact specific, but in other words, saying, well, my attorney said it was okay is not necessarily an automatic defense against an ethics charge. But it's a creative approach. Volunteering in school. There are some limitations on volunteering for Board of Education members. It typically has to do with the level of involvement with students and staff, the frequency and the level of interaction, and authority. So you do not want to find yourself in a position to either give direction to or to orders to students, staff, and be utilizing resources and funding. You want to avoid that. So here's what is important, and the easiest way to use this. Any one-shot things in the district are perfectly fine. If you want to volunteer to work at field day, not a problem. You want to chaperone a field trip, not a problem. And anything that's open to the public, this doesn't count for that, okay? But we're talking about not being in a classroom every day, giving direction to students, giving direction to staff. It's those kind of activities that would be problematic. So you can't be a volunteer coach, for example, or you can't be an advisor to a school club, because you would be giving direction to students and interacting with them on a regular basis and or with staff, okay? So again, you know, one-time, infrequent, intermittent activities, read across America, all of those kinds of things are fine. If you're an officer of the PTA or you're a homeroom parent, again, that's fine because you are not in the building on a regular basis, okay? We suggest that you always let your superintendent know if you're going to be in the school as a parent and volunteer, and make sure you refrain from discussing district board business while you're in their school. Social media. The SEC has said that if you are engaging in the use of social media as a Board of Education member, it is the content and substance and the context of the statements you make that will determine whether there's a problem with that or not. If there is a nexus, a connection between what is being posted, what you have said, and the role or membership that you enjoy on the Board of Education, okay? So, a member discussed without a disclaimer a policy she moved to abolish, indicating it was reviewed by the board council and opposed by 4 board members. A board member shared a campaign image of the 3 candidates running for the board without any further comment on a personal social media page. The first example, there is a nexus between what was said and board business. The second one, there is no nexus. It was just a posting of a picture of 3 candidates, okay? What is a disclaimer? A disclaimer is a statement that you can add if you wish to post on Facebook, X, or whatever we're calling it, X, Instagram, you know, whatever social media pages you might want to be using. You can simply say the following statements are made in my capacity as a private citizen, not in my capacity as a board member. These statements are also not representative of the board and its individual members. Now, you need to provide both parts to that disclaimer because you just don't want to say that it's your opinion, which could leave someone with the impression that while it is your opinion, the board has endorsed it, okay? So using them together indicates that it's your opinion, but it is not representative of the board, particularly important at election season when you don't want to give someone a misimpression around an endorsement because you are free to endorse whoever you'd like or put aside in your yard. That's always something you can do. That is not forestalled. However, I will tell you that using a disclaimer can clarify what you're posting. However, even if you use a disclaimer, it is not dispositive, meaning it is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. So you can still find yourself in trouble even using a disclaimer, depending upon the substance of what you say, the context in which it is said. Okay? So again, it clarifies, but it's not an automatic, okay? If you don't use the actual disclaimer that's here, you can use other words that are similar as long as they are clear, and so that someone reading it would understand that you're speaking solely for yourself and that it does not imply any action on behalf of other board members. So you don't have to use that exact language, but you should have something. Okay? I would also point out that if you have an election page that you've used to campaign, that you should not be using that page once you are elected, because it is implied that it's for the district, for board business. And so if you wish to continue to post, you should use something else. Never ever use your district address to post anything. You should only post from your personal email addresses and not your district email accounts, because that would imply that it was tied to the district and board business. Okay? So thank you for serving your community. You are contributing your valuable time and skill in an important effort of which there probably is nothing more important. And we appreciate it. It's actually, January is National School Board Month. So I like to thank you all for your service. I was a board member 100 years ago. It seems like 100 years ago. I loved it, but what you do does make a difference in the lives of children. So thank you for taking your time to listen tonight, but more importantly for the work you do all year long, because it makes a difference for the children in your community. So thank you. Okay. There are resources that you can go on and look at all of the School Ethics Commission decisions. You can look at all of the advisory opinions that you might want to look at. It's really sort of interesting to see some of the kinds of things that transpire, but you don't want to find yourself in those decisions. Trust me. Always err on the side of caution is the best advice I ever give all the time. And I know I've said it probably for the last, how many years have I come and done this, Dory? I don't want to even think about it. But err on the side of caution. It can never get you in trouble. Okay? So thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, thank you. Good luck. Enjoy the new year. Hope to see you all at Gov4 and Gov1. And if you need anything, Patty's available. I'm just sort of pitch hitting for her. And I look forward to seeing you in October at workshop, and hope to see you, if not sooner, at something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gwen. Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation by Mr. James Haga from Thought Exchange on the transportation survey that was sent out. Ready for that?
He's standing by.
Okay.
No, you're ready.
Just 1 minute, everyone. We set that up.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Ta-da. Hi, James. Thanks for joining us this evening. James is with an organization named Thought Exchange. You all had the opportunity to participate in a pilot question on transportation, as well as their system for commenting and rating those comments. James is going to go through the data that we collected and give the results. Thanks. You just need
Great.
to share your screen because we can't see you otherwise.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Glazer, and thank you everybody for allowing me to take a few minutes to contribute to the discussion this evening. And as Dr. Glazer mentioned, I plan to just give you a walkthrough of the data that was collected in the recent survey. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Bear with me. And can someone please just let me know if you can in fact see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So just by way of quick introduction, in December, we supported the district to implement and run an engagement focused on transportation and effectively trying to gather the voice and perspective of community members as it relates to different critical perspectives within the focus area of transportation and everything associated with that. And before I start to walk you through the data itself, I also just want to say up front that this engagement is perhaps a little bit unique to some other surveys that you may have run before. And there's two distinct but crucial parts to how the engagement was designed, and I'm going to just name them so that you understand. The first was to gather, to ask a series of survey questions that effectively allows you to have a bunch of quantitative data that I'm about to walk you through. And so those are pretty standard survey style questions. But in addition to that, we also ran what is called an exchange, where there was a question essentially looking at what's working and what needs improvement around transportation. And that was an opportunity to collect the direct voices of the participants, where, as opposed to a multiple choice or a Likert style survey question, people are responding in an open text format, and they're also then able to anonymously interact with other people's thoughts and rate those ideas. So that's a very different approach to gathering voice and data. And we did both of them, the quantitative and the qualitative. And so I just want you to understand that as I jump in here. The first, very straightforward, in this engagement, we had a total of 129 people who answered questions, 73% of whom were family members, 27% who were staff. So this is again, just pretty straightforward. And please interrupt me at will if there's something that anyone wants to dig into. And if not, at the end of the presentation, we can take some time for any questions. So here's the first substantive question. How strongly do you agree with the following? The district has been successful in providing safe and efficient transportation so far this year. You can see on the right-hand side, we have what we're calling a favorability score. And the favorability score is essentially taking both those who answered either strongly agree or agree, and putting that into an aggregated score. So 77% of people either were in strong agreement or an agreement. And again, 123 people in total answered this question. So obviously, it's a majority of people who have a very favorable view on this particular question. The next is the bus service provided by Durham and First Student have met my expectations for safety and reliability. This question was answered by 115 people. And again, the favorability score here is 83%. So 61 people indicated that they agree, and an additional 34 individuals indicated that they strongly agree. Our bus drivers have been professional, safe, and courteous. Again, an 83% favorability score. This question was answered by 115 people, 58 of whom indicated they strongly agree, and 37 of whom indicated that they agree. Pickup and drop-off times have been consistent after the October adjustments. This was answered by 115 people with a favorability score of 79%, reflecting 37 people who strongly agreed and a further 54 people who agreed. So again, I think this just reflects that since those changes made in October, there's a pretty clear consensus that things have been consistent. This next question is, my child's current pickup and drop-off stop is safe. This was a question that had 86 respondents, 44 of whom strongly agreed, 26% of whom agreed. It's an 81% favorability score. Now, in the quick explanation for what you're seeing here is that if you indicated in the previous question that you had an issue, effectively, that you were not satisfied, you didn't agree or strongly agree, then you were prompted with a further question, a follow-on question that only went to a small number of people. As you can see, 16 people answered this question: what safety concerns do you have? And as you can see here on the slide, these are some of the responses that were included when those 16 people were prompted to provide a further context or explanation as to why their safety concerns existed. So you can see here, we have to drive to the intersection on the main road where there is no sidewalk or shoulder. We know there are no other options, but it's scary waiting there in the winter months with slick roads and heavy traffic. Another person indicated that there was no safe place to stand, and timing not being as reliable, people being left on buses with parents wondering where their children are. So again, these are just some comments from a small subset of the overall group, and those people were specifically asked this question based on having given an unsatisfactory answer in the previous question, or an answer that indicated that something was unsatisfactory to them. Additional question here, how strongly do you agree with the following? The district's communication about transportation has been appropriate for my needs. This one had a 57% favorability score with 114 respondents in total, 24 of whom strongly agreed with the statement, 41 of whom agreed with the statement. And then you can see there's a smattering of people who either strongly agreed or disagreed, and then a more sizable group of people who were in this category, neither agree nor disagree, which you can think of that category as neutral. You know, that those people don't have a strong view that they're choosing to register one way or the other. They're effectively maintaining a neutral stance on this question. I mentioned that in part because that group that have identified as neutral here is larger, and so you know, if you eliminated that group, that would obviously impact and strengthen that favorability score. And similarly, you know, a smaller group of people, 33 people specifically, were asked, you know, what could be done to improve communication or support. So some of the questions, some of the responses here, one person saying everything has greatly improved. We were getting notified when our driver would be different in the beginning of the year, but not since. That would be my only criticism. Another person saying something similar about not always being notified about substitute drivers. However, communication has improved, and that they love their regular bus driver, who's always nice and on time. Another question here, and I know I'm moving at a clip, but hopefully this is all registering and making sense. How strongly do you agree with the following? The district should consider adjusting bell times to improve bus route timing efficiency. This had a favorability score of 41%, so 111 people answered. 18 people strongly agreed, 27 agreed. A smaller number strongly disagreed or disagreed. And then again, a very sizable number who neither agreed nor disagreed or maintained a neutral position there. So 39% of people, 43 individuals, were neutral. This is the last of the kind of core survey questions. So if your family hasn't opted out of courtesy busing, but doesn't use courtesy busing or transportation services, could you please share the reasoning? And this specifically was asked of people only if it applied to them, and if it didn't apply, they could skip. So there were only 8 people who responded. So this is not a sizable, you know, amount of data for this question. As you can see from the options that were presented in this question, it was effectively evenly split. So some identified concern about the future need, others were unaware of an opt-out option, others wanted to have a backup transportation in case of emergencies. Others mentioned a preference to keep the option available despite infrequent use. So I've spoken to the superintendent about this, and I think that you know, this isn't a significant response, and so not particularly useful, to be frank. Now I want to move on to the second part that I mentioned up front, which is the more open-ended responses to the following question, which was asked of all people in the engagement. Overall, what is working well, and how can we improve your transportation experience? So quite a simple and straightforward question. 136 participants engaged in some way, shape, or form. 100 unique thoughts were contributed. And in the way that this process works, you're not only able to contribute your own perspective, but you're also invited to rate the thoughts of others. And all of that is, again, anonymous. And so there were 1,504 ratings of those 100 thoughts. And just to explain one step further, what those ratings effectively do is they help to demonstrate what are some of the thoughts that have prioritization across the group, as demonstrated by them having a very high rating. So it indicates that many people have rated that particular thought high, and some other thoughts may have been rated lower, indicating that they don't have as much support across the group. So first, I want to show you some of the verbatim thoughts that were the most highly rated in this exchange. So you can see here that the number of these thoughts are one, they're very positive. Bus driver is very courteous, ensures safety. My kids' drivers are excellent. They ensure my kids get to school and home safely. We have a great driver. Time is consistent. Route is no longer too long. Knowing what to expect, when to expect the bus is huge. And not having children on 60-minute plus bus rides is also important. Another person commented that it's the first time that I can remember buses having the students to the schools before the bells, starting on time, no stragglers from the buses. So these are some of the thoughts that have been the most highly rated, again, indicating that they have been rated by multiple people and consistently rated high in the 5-star rating system that we use. What I'm showing you here is what we call our common ground and differences. And to explain this, the idea is because individuals are rating the thoughts of other people, we're able to analyze that data and identify areas that may be where there may be differences of opinion as illustrated by the rating patterns, but we're also able to identify areas where whole groups of people have consensus. So while there may be groups that have disagreement on certain issues, in this case, timing efficiency on one side and route duration on the other side, everyone had common ground around the importance of communication and parents wanting timely notifications about delays, substitute drivers, and any changes in the schedule, and that effective communication can help mitigate anxiety, reduce anxiety, and manage expectations. So the point of this is really just to say that there's diversity of opinion and perspective in the community around the issue of transportation, and there are also issues that really provide a consistent common ground and bring everyone together, despite the fact that there may be some difference of opinion on certain issues. This is just reflecting that while there were 100 individual thoughts contributed, this is putting those 100 thoughts into theme sets. Okay, so these are themes, and they're presented based on the themes that had the highest rating. So issues like bus drivers, substitute drivers, student behavior, consistency, and reliability. These are some of the themes that emerged clearly across the 100 thoughts that were contributed by members of the community.
Question. Can you hear me?
Loud.
Yep,
Sorry, can you go back one screen?
absolutely.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, when you say these are the ones that were highest rated, that means they were the most discussed, not that they were rated best. It wasn't a, or was it?
What
These are
this
the
is
topics that-
reflecting is that these themes, which include multiple thoughts within each of the themes, that those themes had overall, they're presented in order of which had the highest rating associated with the thoughts that make up that theme. So put differently, there were multiple thoughts about bus drivers, and those thoughts were consistently rated the highest of any other theme or grouping of thoughts.
Thank you.
What I've done here is I've just included a sampling of some of the top thoughts from some of those key themes. Okay, so around the theme of bus driver, the bus driver is very courteous, ensures safety. So far, our route has been on time each day, and our driver really is outstanding. But the bus driver is kind and helpful. My child feels comfortable getting on the bus, and the driver ensures the children are safe. I'll just jump down here. The whole busing experience has been much improved than previous. Communications are more clear. Bus timing is consistent, very courteous and kind to the kids. So again, there's quite a lot of very positive reflections that are being shared. And these are things that are not only being identified by the individuals who contributed the thoughts, but those thoughts are also then being rated quite favorably by others who are reading and interacting with those thoughts. This is the next category around student behavior. Just quickly to explain, because the way I just pulled this presentation together, this is a slightly different view into the thoughts, and you'll notice this little smiley face, or in this case, neutral face. What that indicates is that there's a sentiment that's been applied to some of these thoughts, and the sentiment can either be neutral, negative, or positive. So in this case, these thoughts were identified as neutral. And then you see a little person icon with the number 19 next to it. And that indicates that this thought, which was contributed by one person, was rated by 19 different individuals. And that's what's informed the overall rating of the thought. So most students are arriving to school on time to learn. It would be good to see students leaving promptly at the end of the day rather than waiting. Another person commented, teach bus safety, appropriate behavior like teaching buckling the seatbelt, providing clear expectations. Here's an additional theme around consistency and reliability. You can see that both of these thoughts were assigned a positive sentiment. We have a great driver, the time is consistent, route is no longer too long. So that's a very favorable thought. And also our regular bus driver is great, so please keep him. And also the current route and timing works for us. Here is a theme around route efficiency. Students are arriving to and from school in a timely fashion. Students can start their school day on time and can minimize their time on the bus route home. All Valley View neighborhoods should be on one bus to improve efficiency. The other bus has a significantly earlier drop-off time and doesn't make sense. This is the last theme I want to show you, and it's focused around parent feedback. And again, these are the among the most highly rated thoughts in the parent feedback section. But I just want to note, you can see that each of them is assigned a positive sentiment. There were no negative sentiment comments in this theme at all. So a person has said major improvement from the disastrous past 4 years. Another person has said, I think the consistency has been phenomenal. I appreciate the cohesiveness of when students arrive in the morning. And another parent saying, we are a special needs family and more than happy with the bus service. So that, in essence, concludes the presentation. Again, I hope that it was clear and conveys a good reflection of where the respondents in your community are at with respect to those critical questions that you were seeking input and feedback on.
Thanks, James. Do any of the board members have questions for James? Additional questions? No? No? Okay. We will be putting, obviously, the presentation on the website. We'll be sharing it. I think you could hear the areas for action items, especially with communication around delays and sub-drivers. I know that that has already started to change. We've spoken to the bus company to let us know as soon as there's a sub, not just, you know, when we find out. We have a wonderful partnership with the police. They have been tremendous. The challenge with all of the construction in town or with accidents or whatever, they might call us at 1 o'clock and say, oh, we haven't still cleared this accident, and we send a message, and then they call us at 2:30 and say, we're really good, we're gonna be good to go, we got it done. We're like, oh, but we just told everybody that we're gonna be delayed. So we're trying to figure out how best to address that, but I do think the sub-communication has gotten back as soon as we know.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, James.
Pleasure.
And thanks for hanging
Thank you,
in
everybody.
tonight.
Yeah, good luck with your meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so
Oh, he did. I was
Okay.
trying to make sure Aaron could
we're
switch.
back. We have a couple members of the public in the audience tonight, so just out of consideration for their time and the effort that they made to show up, I'd like to switch up the order of the agenda and move our executive session to the place where the comments from the public on agenda items is, and go to the comments from the public on agenda items now. And that would put the executive session after all the reports. So we'll go comments from the public on agenda items, our reports, and then go to executive session.
First, you have our remarks, then the committee reports.
I can't go straight to the comments.
Well, they,
Okay, we can do that.
only because we haven't given our report. I mean,
Okay.
maybe they have a comment.
All right.
Because remember, it's comments on agenda items, and then at the end, it's general comment.
Okay, so I will move the executive session to after comments from the public on agenda items, and we'll go into superintendent remarks.
Okay. We pull that up, put on my glasses. So, hello, everybody. Good evening. This is my first chance back to wish you all a happy and healthy new year. I will say we have certainly hit the ground running. In the absence of our principals tonight, I'm going to share their principals report first, and then Karen, if she has something to add, a BA report, and then we'll go back into my comments. So from Mrs. Fichtner and Ms. Kidd. On December 17th, our TREPS entrepreneurs hosted the annual marketplace event at Valley View, showcasing the exceptional student creativity and business acumen. Students generated a commendable total profit of $1,510 through their sales efforts. They've pledged to donate 10% of those earnings to the Plainfield Area Humane Society. Also at Valley View, academic achievements. Students excelled in the American Mathematics Competition, AMC 10. Congratulations to our top performers, Ariana Patel, securing first place, Pranav Agarwal and Tyler Liu tied for second place, and Omesh Kolan earned third place. The AMC 10 is sponsored by the Mathematical Association of America and fosters problem-solving skills and positive attitudes towards analytical thinking among students, and the testing does cover curriculum up to 10th grade. On January 15th, Bayberry held its annual 3rd and 4th grade spelling bee, and Jola Felix Alloway was crowned the champion in first place, with Ishan Kilara in second place and Benjamin Tanios in third place. Everybody did a great job. Congratulations. And then the next day at Valley View, January 16th, there was a spelling bee here. They had 23 rounds. It started in the morning. I didn't think it was going to finish, but it did. And Alec Chulawicki emerged as the winner, Ariana Patel in second place, and Layla Costello in third. Again, congratulations. It takes a lot of hard work. I might not think so, but it was very competitive. So congratulations. In honor of our Martin Luther King Day of Commemoration and Service, Bayberry held their own day of service, January 17th. Their service projects ranged from small ways, just helping out around the school with projects and the community, and also larger things. The kindergarten packed 97 bags of snacks for the homeless. The first grade created Happy Meal placemats delivered to Meals on Wheels, and they also read to our preschoolers. Kind of loved that, kindergarten and preschool. Our second graders made bookmarks for the library. Third grade organized, I loved, this was my favorite, organized a classroom cleanup to help the custodians. And the fourth grade made Valentines for community senior citizens. Looking ahead from the schools, the PTO is organizing a talent show. There are no-cut auditions scheduled for tomorrow, Friday, at Valley View. The actual talent show will take place on January 31st at 6:30 p.m. They are very excited to showcase the student talent. This is a PTO fundraiser. Adult tickets are priced at $10. Since PTO is not here, I'll just share that with you. But student admission is free. They will be doing the same thing at Bayberry. Their auditions are February 21st at 6:30, and the talent show is February 28th. Get all your kids together. There'll be more information and signups on the PTO website. Also, very exciting Performing Arts Month. On January 15th, the band concert that Mrs. Morrison does was held, Classical Treasures. And I understand I had to miss it, but I understand it was a resounding success. So congratulations to Mrs. Morrison and all of our talented band members. Additionally, the chorus concert was held on just Tuesday night, January 21st. There were exceptional performances. Hey, Erin, if you run my PowerPoint, I think there's pictures of all of this stuff. They also had exceptional performances under the guidance of Mr. R. It was really a fun night, and you'll see that. 3 of our science teachers participated in the science learning walkthroughs at the high school. They were able to collaborate with the teachers from the other sending districts, as well as the science supervisor at the high school, on teaching practices and resources. You see up on the screen our girls basketball. In athletics, both of our boys and girls basketball teams have advanced to the quarterfinals. Really amazing. Honestly, I attended the girls' playoff game this afternoon. They won their quarterfinal game and are going 23-12, if you see on the screen. They go to the semifinals on Monday. That is an away game. The boys will be in their semifinals on Tuesday. That game is at home at 4 o'clock, if you can join us. Yesterday at Bayberry, in anticipation of Lunar New Year and Chinese New Year, the students had a wonderful Chinese acrobatic performance by Li Lu. The students were, this from Mrs. Fickner, the students were amazed at the acrobatic tricks and enjoyed learning about Chinese culture. This was also brought to Bayberry by the PTO, so thank you, PTO, for an engaging assembly. Valley View's community outreach had an amazingly successful coat drive. Donations from community members in Watchung and Warren combined were brought here to Valley View. Bayberry also did a collection, 8 bags of coats collected at Bayberry alone. All the donations are given to Family and Children's Services in Plainfield, as well as the Plainfield Action Service Organization. So truly, thank you, everybody who donated and was so generous with helping other people in the community. Do you have a PA update?
Well, let's see. Well, in January, the business office does W-2s and 1099s. That's a big project on our plate because we're a fiscal year. We don't close our books in December like a lot of companies do, but we are still responsible for that part of the taxes. So all employees get their W-2s and all the vendors get their 1099s, and we do a semi-close. So that keeps us pretty busy over there. So that's it.
Okay, well, I'll keep going then with my report, and this is for all of you. Governor Murphy, and Gwen mentioned this in her presentation, has declared January 2025 as the 23rd Annual School Board Recognition Month. Each of you will get your own copy of Governor Murphy's proclamation. Yay. But I also wanted to take just a minute to publicly thank you for the many, many hours you volunteer in service and will volunteer in service to the district students. Your role doesn't get a lot of thank yous, honestly, but I am grateful for the work you do. We are all grateful for what you do for our schools and community, and honestly, for your efforts to come together as a group of 9, to learn about your roles and responsibilities, and to create a culture of collaboration. I know it has been no small task. You should be very proud of how you're representing the district. And just a little foreshadowing, we're going to look forward to really celebrating and honoring your achievement that you attained board certification in May at the county meeting. So yay, and really thank you, everybody. Just a few upcoming things. We've sent out the save the dates and registration and agenda for first strategic planning meeting next Wednesday, January 29th. All 3 meetings are going to be held here in the APR, 7 o'clock. The first one, like I said, January 29th. The registration form and agenda was sent out. It's on the district website. It's on the borough website. The first meeting, you will have the pleasure of a State of the District report. And then as a community, we'll be identifying strengths and weaknesses of the district. The second meeting will be on Monday, March 3rd. At that meeting, we continue the conversation and begin to discuss the future 3 to 5 years of the district, identifying broad themes to focus on. Our third meeting, Wednesday, March 26th, is where we start doing that goal setting, right? What are our goals for those 3 years or 5 years, whatever determined? And after those goals are set, we come back and create an action plan, the administration, for first year goals. We will publicly give feedback from each of these meetings, so people who were not able to attend will be able to understand what's going on. It really is an opportunity for all of us to reflect, and really important to share input, right, into the future of the district. I keep getting asked this question. It's on every flyer. Yes, come to all 3 meetings. If you can only come to 1 meeting, come to 1. We really want to hear your voice. And yes, we encourage you to bring your friends, your neighbors. Somebody said the other day, it's on the borough site, we sent it out to every organization, to the chamber, but I don't have kids in school. We need those voices too, right? We need every voice. You're all taxpayers and people that volunteer and work in the community. So please, please plan to join us. All 3 meetings are going to be facilitated by our new field service rep. Again, you heard Gwen reference her, Patty Reese, from the New Jersey School Boards Association, and we're following their model of strategic planning. Also, upcoming, Wednesday, February 5th, 7 p.m., right here in the APR, we're going to be having a referendum town hall public meeting regarding the field and outdoor learning commons here at Valley View. They have had the internal stakeholders meeting, hearing from teachers, coaches, special education, the principals, anybody that would be within the schools using the space. And now we need the input from the community. The project architects and construction management will be at the meeting. I will say, after chillers and RTUs, we're pretty excited to move forward with the projects, and this construction would be scheduled for next summer. It will not impact the schools being open in the summer, but obviously the work is done on the field and in the area where you enter here, the APR, so those areas would not be available. And then this Thursday, next Thursday, the 30th, the Regionalization Study Committee is reconvening. We're moving forward with the review and analysis of the public data for the 5 sending districts to the high school. That's test scores, CUSAC performance reports, long-range facility plan. And they are also the Rowan study team scheduling in-person meetings with the superintendents, BAs, special ed directors, and curriculum staff, just in preparation for the next steps of that study. That would also include a demographic study, which I'm excited about. I think that'll be really valuable to us. And then just finally, a reminder, the district will be closed on Monday, February 17th in honor of President's Day. And then the schools are closed for students also on Tuesday, February 18th, so staff can participate in a full day of collaborative professional learning. And then our next board meeting will already be Thursday, February 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glazer. Okay, so we'll move on now to committee reports. Mrs. Jewett, can you give the report for the curriculum committee?
Okay.
What?
Curriculum update. Here we
Can
are.
you hold on one second? Sorry, Mrs. Jewett.
Sorry.
I had a question, but I can save it for.
No, go ahead.
Dr. Glazer, I just wanted to clarify, the outdoor commons work, that's happening this coming summer or next summer?
Summer 2025. If we can get the design, what happens is, right, we have the internal stakeholders. Now we need the community input. That'll be February 5th. Following that, the architects come up with their basis for design, right? We would advertise the bid, same process we went through last year. Then you would have the bid opening, you would approve that bid, and it would be scheduled for, God help us, summer 2025. And that concludes the referendum process.
And I apologize if you said this and I missed it.
It's okay.
Have we asked the town council to promote the strategic planning meetings, and is it
Did
on
say,
their big board?
it is
and everything?
published. We have sent it out to every group.
Okay, great.
From the chamber to everybody in town. It's posted at the library. It's posted on the borough site, and the borough also did a blast, I think, yesterday. As they also have the registration and agenda blast.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, it's fine. We want everybody, right? We want everybody to come.
Yeah.
So it's a great question.
Okay. Curriculum committee minutes. And this was for Thursday, January the 16th at 4:05, and it ended at 5:15, and it was virtual. Committee members present were Jessica Maddox, myself, Board of Ed President Jennifer Aguilera, Daniela Medio, and our administration and guests were Dr. Julie Glazer, Superintendent, Denise Fichtner-Bayberry, Principal, Nicole DeToda, Director of Special Services. Okay, the referendum field and outdoor learning commons follow-up. There will be a town hall for the outdoor learning commons and field on Wednesday, February 5th, 2025 at 7 p.m. We will be sending 2 of our teachers to Maine to attend a conference regarding the development of the outdoor learning space. The Life Skills Room at Valley View is being discussed at the upcoming construction management meeting, and a timeline will be developed for the room to be ready for students and staff use. Curriculum update. Curriculum writing and revisions for K-4, ELA, and math started in the summer of 2024 are continuing and are planned to be completed by this summer. We have to remember that the textbook is not the curriculum. Curriculum development involves teachers understanding the grade level standards and skills expectations and writing curriculum to align with state standards using a variety of resources. Administration and staff continue to work on curriculum throughout the school year. At Bayberry, ELA and math were addressed with committee representatives from each grade level and special education. The ELA curriculum is being aligned with the Science of Reading program, and teachers are exploring and piloting math programs. Professional learning with Conquer Math has helped to inform the review. Work at Bayberry is currently focused on grades 3 and 4, with our IDE consultant assisting with sorting through our current curriculum and resources. Valley View curriculum writing last summer also included science and PE. Grades 5 through 8 have reviewed math materials and are piloting specific lessons and/or units for our general and accelerated math program. Grades 7 and 8 algebra and geometry curriculum has not changed. However, they are also reviewing resources. As part of this work, curriculum committees are also looking at what professional development is provided by the various publishers to support their understanding and enhance instructional strategies. A little bit more, hang in there. Sending districts articulate horizontally with each other and vertically with Watchung Hills Regional High School, including the content area supervisors to align curriculum and expectations with the high school. Okay, other topics. The Director of Special Services and the whole department have worked tirelessly to prepare our district for the required state monitoring of compliance. This has been a huge undertaking involving 6 areas of oversight. We will not receive feedback until the summer. A discussion regarding the World Language Program at Bayberry and Valley View schools was discussed. Now, the NJDOE, New Jersey Department of Ed, all districts are required to have K-12 programs that ensure students meet the New Jersey Student Learning Standards to equip students with necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes to participate successfully in the 21st century, embracing the state's multiculturalism and diversity, including the acquisition of diverse languages and cultures. World Languages education provides learners with the essential language skills and cultural understandings in languages other than English necessary to live and work in a global, culturally diverse world. Presently, we have a cultural world language program at Bayberry and an introductory language program at Valley View. We have 2 updates for the district calendar. 2024-2025 district calendar should read June 20th, 2025. Juneteenth is observed. The 2025-2026 district calendar should read September 2nd, 2025, Labor Day, school closed. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jewett. Mr. Gonzalez, can you give us the committee report for the Administration and Finance Committee, please?
Sure. Administrative and Finance Committee met on 4 p.m. on January 14th. Notes from the committee discussion were agenda items: employee professional development, pay application, HVAC, fiscal year 2025, summer 24, shared services with Long Hill and Watchung Hills Regional for analysis and updated bus routes, trading transportation consultant. Approved continuing use of PEPPM cooperative to purchase technology equipment. We also discussed new business for fiscal year 2026, ET resignation, short-term, long-term disability plans, more robust offerings starting 7/1. Colonial Life Insurance, we discuss implications of offering short-term policies as well as existing long-term policies. At 4:45, throughout the exchange of presentation, Mr. Hugo explained the thoughts of exchange with us and how it could relevate to our district through the exchange and not through AI company, but the use of generated AI. Mr. James then demonstrated the results of the transportation to the survey. We conducted as well a pilot throughout the exchange. Overall, the transportation has improved as students have been arriving on time in the morning. Still work to do this afternoon, in the afternoon, as some routes. Bus drivers have received a large amount of praise for their safety and procedures. Comments included concerns including unsafe waiting areas, traffic and speedway visibility and blind spots, and distance and accessibility. The general value from the survey and the comments is that the respondents feel that the routes end stops are safe. We also discussed some previous instances of individuals concerning regarding transportation, discussions of providing additional training for the students and bus safety and behavior. There was noticed that the need to improve transportation communication in cases of delays and substitutes. The general consensus of the parents, family regarding bell times was neutral, while teachers, it was also generally neutral with some strong disagree. Referendum projects updates, discussion reference to the field of the outdoor learning commons with school stakeholders. Reports from the architects will be sent to the district so that there will be no plan to share, be a plan to share. Community meetings, Wednesday, February 5th, date for the town hall, share the plans with the community, and discussed open items and a punch list of items. Faculty usage pricing, we also discussed that. We discussed individuals' use of facilities, referred to the policy for further discussion and consideration. Transportation follow-up, the meetings to prepare need to be rescheduled. Upcoming events, we have Valley View Band Concert, Wednesday, January 15th, that already passed. And we have the district closed for Reverend Martin Luther King, which also passed. And we had some other meetings in here as well that passed. But then the Board of Ed tonight, and then the first public strategic plan meeting Wednesday, January 29th, and the town hall on the Valley View Outdoor Learning Commons referendum project is Wednesday, February 5th. The meeting adjourned at 6:20, and I forgot to mention in the beginning of the meeting that Mrs. Harvey, Ms. Agugliaro, Mr. Haga, Dr. Glazer, Karen Bishop Johnson, Mr. Fredge, and myself were all present.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Amadeo, could you give the report for the policy committee, please?
Yes. The policy committee met virtually on Wednesday, January 15th from 5:30 to 6:50 p.m. In attendance were Dr. Glazer, myself, Phyllis Jewett, Jen Agliero, and Manuel Gonzalez. There were two policies up for a second reading. P5540, honoring student achievement. That was a second reading, and P919 Booster Club, also a second reading. The committee did not receive feedback on these policies, and both were approved for the agenda this evening and will be up for a second reading. New business, the Admin Finance Committee asked policy to re-review our facility use policy due to a rental request that came in from an individual user. Dr. Glazer provided a review of that issue as an example for consideration in reviewing this policy. The committee discussed if we could make rentals easier for personal use by individual residents, and we proposed creating an additional renter category that would separate individual non-residents paying rent and custodial fees, which would be called Class 4, from individual residents, Class 3, that would pay only custodial fees for personal use of the space. A Class 3 rental must be for personal use only. Groups, nonprofits, for-profit entities would pay the rental fees. And additionally, a resident or guardian must be in the space the entire time of the rental. Custodial fees will be charged hourly. If approved for a first reading tonight, this policy, along with any of the others up for review, will be shared with the board tomorrow so we can all discuss. P1642.01, use of sick leave. This was a policy was listed as missing by the NJSBA annual wellness check, which the board received this month. The policy was abolished because our sick leave policy is spelled out in the current teacher contract, and we did not want to contradict it with the new policy. P5111, eligibility of resident/non-resident students. Last year, this committee affirmed this policy, stating if a student moves out of district toward the end of their last year at school, either 4th or 8th grade, we would let them finish out the year without paying tuition. The state law has changed, however, and now families are required to pay tuition in this instance. This change is mandatory law and goes into effect immediately, even though the mandatory revision to the policy language goes through the standard first and second reading process. P2365, acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence, AI, and P5701, academic integrity. These two policies were reviewed as a starting point for what guidelines might benefit our district around AI policy and student use. Dr. Glazer suggested passing these policies along to the principals for review and feedback before discussing further. And finally, some follow-up, transportation policy. I had offered some ideas in December's meeting on how we might update our transportation policy to include more routing safety guidelines. Dr. Glazer and the transportation coordinator will provide feedback on these points at our next committee meeting. MOA, Memorandum of Agreement. Dr. Glazer informed the committee that new guidance was provided on this and that Pinky would provide a comparison of the current policy and new guidance at the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Amadeo. Mr. Gonzalez, on Negotiations Committee.
Is it ready for that one? Okay. Oh, that was the, I have the notes on that, sorry. Okay, for the Negotiations Committee, we met on the 21st, and our next meeting is on February 6th.
Thank you. Moving on now to board liaison reports. Our legislative liaison's not in attendance tonight. Mrs. Maddox, can I assume you haven't been sworn in yet to the Somerset County Education?
No updates.
Okay. Mrs. Amadeo, any update from the Somerset County School Boards Association?
There's a county meeting on January 27th, Somerset and Hudson County, where they're presenting a title, What You Need to Know About the Board Secretary's Report. This is a topic that's been discussed before at prior meetings. I think a lot of us have seen this, but if you'd like to go, it is available. And then the next meeting is May 8th, so we have some time on that one.
That's a good meeting. Mark your calendar.
Thank you. I have no update for the School Boards Association other than to remind everyone to do their mandatory training. For the Regionalization Committee, there is an upcoming meeting on January 30th. And then, Dr. Glazer, is there any update for the MUJC?
No, Morris Union Joint Chair Committee hasn't.
Hasn't met. Perfect.
We will.
Okay, so moving on to community engagement, is there anyone here from the PTO? Or WEF? Or CPEG? Okay, now we'll move on to comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and municipality of residence. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. Okay. All right. So the We'll move into executive session. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss, 1, a matter rendered confidential by federal or state law, student matters, a collective bargaining agreement and/or negotiations related to it, and pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiation and/or matters of attorney-client privilege. Further resolved, the minutes of this closed session to be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists and action may be taken.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Adjourned for executive session. back from executive session, moving on to action items. Dory, can you move administrative items?
Sure. I move number 1, approve minutes of previous meeting. 2, affirm the superintendent's HIB report. 3, approve Phillips Field's modifications.
Give a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
I'm going to abstain from 1 and yes to 2 and 3.
okay, Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. Mrs. Amadeo, could you move personnel?
I move personnel items 1, approve appointment, 2, revise appointment, 3, approve before and after care staff, 4, approve revised leaves of absence, 5, approve extra duties, 6, approve district staff to provide support services during school district-sponsored activities. That's it.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Abstain.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, could you move items under Operation Finance?
Sure. Number 1, approve payments of bills. Number 2, approve transfer of funds from 2024-2025. Number 3, accept financial reports. Number 4, approve shared consultant services of Watchung Hills Regional High School. Number 5, approve cooperative pricing system participation. Number 6, approve contract for Fulcrum Management Solutions throughout exchange. Number 7, approve payment application for Bayberry and Valley View HVAC upgrades. Number 8, approve changes for order for Bayberry and Valley View HVAC upgrades. And that's it.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question about Thought Exchange. So that was a sample of what they can do. If we were to pay for this product, are they still going to administer and produce that report, or is it something that we do and we have to create ourselves? The report gets produced and we have to build that.
So we get a designated person to work with us to do that. The good news, like since it was a pilot, we had no access to the data, to any tools. So if we move forward, I will be trained, and up to 4 other people, could be, administration, whoever we think would use it best, would also be trained to be able to access that information and generate those reports. So we have a person that can do it, but we are also trained how to use the tool.
Does the cost include a single survey
No, unlimited.
for a certain duration of time?
Or, what, January 31st? It's a year.
So we have,
1 year.
got it.
And then we decide, right? Did we use it?
Right. And do they have statisticians that help us figure out our questioning? Questioning language is so important in terms of getting the right answers and not a bunch of gobbledygook.
So we told them, like with the transportation pilot, they assigned me a person, and we said, so this is what we need to know. And they came back with questions. The Likert scale, that strongly, was actually structured opposite, right? Because all of the district surveys before that went the other way. And that same person said, that's not really the industry standard. You should really consider, this. There were survey questions that they felt would be encompassed in the overarching question. I know you all took the survey, so I know you know what I'm saying. There was the overarching question, then there was the quantitative survey questions, and the qualitative piece. So they were able to structure that, so it was very targeted.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay. Roll call.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Abstain.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Jewett, could you move the item under curriculum?
Curriculum A, approve revised 2024-2025 and the 2025-2026 district academic calendars.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Amadeo, could you move items under policy, please?
I move policy items A, first reading for use of school facilities, and B, second reading, honoring student achievement and booster clubs.
Second.
Any discussion?
I actually just want to say one thing about this because I think it's just for board members, it's sometimes hard to find these documents for reading. So I'm going to send an email out to everyone tomorrow where you can find them and make sure everyone knows. Follow up.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Okay. Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
It moves us on to board business. Does anyone have any?
Yes. Just hold it away. Yes, I would, if the board wants to discuss it, we can. But I would really like for all of our documents to be put into the board agenda folder so that we don't have to constantly keep looking through the committee folders when it's time for the board meeting. And if there's anything that's updated, so if there's policies so that our chair of policy doesn't have to email all of us the policies, they should be in the board packet for us to see prior to us being at the meeting. So anything that's updated, any items that were provided to the committees, I'm asking for those to just go in, even if they're in the committee folder, for them to then be duplicated and put into the board agenda packet. So we're all looking in one space instead of going through 4 different folders to try and decipher whatever the heck it is we're doing. So that's what I would ask for because it's just more of a convenience for us. We're all obviously very busy individuals, and to make it just more efficient for us so that we know where things are and what we're looking at would be extremely helpful.
Thank you. And I just want to ask, because I opened it up just to make sure. I see the attachments for the agenda. I see the minutes. I see the committees and the meeting times. The policy folder is supposed to go with the current agenda, right, for the public tomorrow, and then it would be in the folder, so that's an easy one.
Which folder? It would be in the the,
It would be in both, the committee folder and the board folder.
Yes, that's what I'm asking
tomorrow?
for.
Usually it's,
No.
usually it's not.
But if we're voting on policies, we should be able to read all of those ahead of time, even though they're in the committee folder. That's fine. I'm just asking for them to be also put into the board packet. And then anything that's provided, even in curriculum, where we get to see any type of presentations prior to it being presented at board meetings, if those are in the committee folder, they should also be shared. Anything should go into the board agenda packet so that we're just looking in one spot, because it's just a little bit much that we're going back and forth all the time, and sometimes documents get updated, but like which one are we looking at, or it's just a bit much. So if everything that's updated could just be put into one place prior to the board meeting, that would be appreciated.
Got it. In particular with policies, because they're long and you need time to give feedback, I would love a folder, a policy folder within the board meeting folder that is updated at the beginning of the month that says first reading, policy name, second reading, policy name, something like that. I think that would be helpful. Agree?
That's a good idea, Dory. I would appreciate it too.
Yeah, just to make it easier for us.
It's better organized that way.
Any other board business? Okay, we're moving on to comments from the public, but there's no one here. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Anybody?